Welcome to Priestess Initiations, the Goddess Coven. I'm Casey Dunn, educator, priestess, and professional somatic therapist. In April 2025, I went through a priestess initiation of old and launched the Priestess Initiations podcast 6 months later. Whatever brought you here today, I invite you to drop into the spiral with me. Let's begin. Welcome back to Priestess Initiations, the Goddess Coven. I'm Casey, and today we're talking about Kali, the destroyer, the Dark Mother, the one who clears the ground so new life can emerge. But we're not just talking about Kali in mythology. We're talking about Kali in the world right now. Kali as wildfire, Kali as climate change, Kali as the rage and grief of the earth itself. Because here's what I've come to understand. Climate change isn't just an environmental crisis. It's an initiation. It's Kali energy moving through the planet, destroying what can't continue, clearing space for what must come next. And if we're going to survive this, if we're going to be a part of the healing, we have to learn how to be with that destruction. Not constantly numbing out, doom scrolling, or refusing to see what's happening, but learning to intentionally come back, to titrate our exposure, to stay present with what's real. And here's the hard part. We have to hold both at the same time. The destruction of the old and the birth of the new. The grief of what's dying and the possibility of what's emerging. That's Kali's teaching. That's the work. Before we dive in, here's your astrology for the week, and it could not be more perfect for this conversation. Because this week is massive. We have some of the biggest astrological shifts of the year happening all at once. On Monday, January 26th at 10:38 Mountain Time, Neptune enters Aries for the first time since the 1860s. Neptune is the mystic, the dreamer, dissolution and spirituality, and it's entering Aries, the warrior, the pioneer, the one who acts. This is a generational shift. For the last 14 years, Neptune has been in Pisces, its home sign. And that has led to soft, surrendered, passive spirituality, more dissolution, more dissolving. And now Neptune is in Aries, and spirituality is becoming active, action-oriented. This isn't meditation, retreat spirituality. This is spirituality that gets up and does something. And that's Kali. Kali doesn't sit still. Kali doesn't just witness. Kali acts. Kali destroys. Kali clears the path. And then on Tuesday, Mars meets Pluto in Aquarius. Mars is also the warrior, desire, action. And Pluto's the underworld, transformation, death, and rebirth. And when they meet, you get intense revolutionary power, collective action, the will to transform systems, not just individuals. This is the energy of movements, uprisings, people saying, we will not accept this anymore. And in the context of climate, this is the energy we need, the willingness to confront what must change. All Patreon members get the full weekly transit list every Monday at 11:11 a.m. Mountain Time. And this week also includes Mercury conjunct Venus, the full moon in Leo, and more. All right, so let's talk about who Kali is. So who is Kali? In Hindu mythology, Kali is born from Durga, the great mother, the divine feminine warrior. And when Durga is battling demons that threaten cosmic order, when her power alone isn't enough, nor is the power of any of the gods, including the male gods, she births Kali from her forehead, from her third eye. And Kali emerges as the fierce aspect of the mother, the one who will do what needs to be done, no matter how violent, no matter how terrifying. Kali appears with dark skin, wild hair, a tongue dripping blood. She wears a necklace of skulls, the heads of demons she's slain, but also the heads of egos, illusions, false structures. And she carries a sword. I like to picture her with dual swords. And she dances in the midst of destruction. And here's what we need to understand. Kali isn't evil. She's not cruel for cruelty's sake. She's necessary. The myth tells us that Kali is sent to Earth to kill demons. But there's a problem. Every time she strikes a demon down, another drop of blood that hits the ground sprouts a new demon. The violence is multiplying. The destruction is endless. So Kali does something radical. She begins consuming the demon's blood. She drinks it. She takes it into herself, trusting that she can transmute it within her own body. She doesn't just destroy, she metabolizes the poison. This is crucial. Kali doesn't just kill and walk away. She takes the toxicity into herself and alchemizes it. She trusts her own power to transform what she consumes. And Kali wears a necklace of skulls, the heads of the demons she's slain, and those egos, illusions, false structures, like I said. But I want you to understand that as she's dancing in the midst of destruction, think about wildfire. When a forest burns, it looks like total destruction, right? This is one of those things when people ask you what makes you sad. For me, it is always a down tree. And after a wildfire, the trees are gone. The ground is charred and it looks like death. But that's not the whole story. Fire clears the dense underbrush that was choking the forest floor. It releases nutrients back into the soil. It cracks open seeds that need heat to germinate. Within weeks, sometimes days, new growth begins. Green shoots pushing up through the ash. Life emerging from destruction. And that's Kali. She's the fire. She's the necessary clearing. She's the destruction that makes space for creation. And she's not gentle about it. She doesn't apologize. She doesn't ask permission. She doesn't wait for us to be ready. When the world is out of balance, when systems are poisoned, when what's supposed to die is clinging to life and choking out what needs to be born, Kali shows up, and she burns it down. In the mythology, Kali is so consumed by her destructive dance that she threatens to destroy the entire world. She's unstoppable, she's terrifying, she's rage incarnate. But her rage isn't random. Her destruction isn't chaos. She's destroying what must die. She's clearing what must be cleared. She's the mother's fierce love, the love that will not tolerate poison, will not tolerate harm, will not let the world die slowly when radical surgery is needed. And that's what we're living through right now, on this planet, in this moment, with climate change, with war, with false idols, with a lot more. And Kali isn't just a myth. She is here. She's here in the wildfire. She's here in the hurricanes. She's in the floods and the droughts and the species going extinct. She's the Earth's fever, the planet's immune response to the poison we've pumped into her veins for 200 years. And this isn't punishment. This is Kali. This is the fierce mother saying, this system cannot continue. And I'm going to go ahead and name those systems as capitalism, as patriarchy, as systems of hate over love. And Kali saying this way of living cannot continue. And if you won't change it, I will burn it down so something else can grow. That's what climate change is. That's what we're facing. Not just environmental collapse, but Kali's initiation. The destruction that must happen so something new can be born. And the question for us is, can we be with that? Can we hold the terror of the fire and the promise of new growth? Can we grieve what's dying and work for what's emerging? Can we consume the poison and trust ourselves to transform it? And we're already seeing this happen. Scientists are developing enzymes and bacteria that can consume plastic, literally eat and break it down. Because just stopping plastic production isn't enough. We have centuries of accumulated poison in our oceans, in our soil, in our bodies. We need organisms that can metabolize it transform it, turn it into something that won't kill us. And that's Kali's work at a molecular level, consuming the poison, trusting the process. That's the work. That's what Kali asks of us. So let me tell you about a time that Kali came through for me. In my natal chart, I have Kali at 4 degrees Sagittarius in the 11th house. The 11th house is the house of collective work, community, networks, future vision. And Sagittarius is fire, philosophy, big picture truth. And this placement tells me that my Kali work isn't just personal. It's for the collective. My destruction, my burning down, my transformation, it's in service to something larger than myself. And I'm going to be launching, I'm deciding on what to call it still, but for now, I'm going to call it Goddess Astrology Maps. And this is something that you'll be able to order from me with or without a one-time live reading. And so this will be a one-on-one offering that I'm offering under the Goddess Coven. And essentially what you'll get is all the goddess placements that I know how to run, which is a lot. I don't know the exact number, but it's definitely over 25 goddess placements in your birth chart, along with a soul path analysis. And that's your north and south node. And I'm not going to be focused on planets as much unless they're near your north or south node, in part because you can get that in any app. You can get that anywhere online. And you can't get your goddesses. You can't learn where their placements are. And it's so helpful when you're doing this work, when you're trying to identify your guides, to know who you've worked with before, who's on your south node, who you're working with early in this life, who's retrograde, and you're reworking your relationship to them, and who's on your north node. Where are you going? Who's supporting that soul-aligned path? And so Kali is near my north node. She's not on it, but she's close enough. And that's scary. That's why I said she's where I'm going. And a couple years ago, Kali showed up for me in a way I'll never forget. I needed to cut cords to my emotionally abusive ex, to all the men who harmed me, who had made me feel less than. And more than that, I needed to cut cords to the messages, the voices, the demons inside my own head that said, you're not enough. Or, you're too much. And especially, you're too much. That one lived deep. In psychology, we call this introjection, the unconscious adoption of other people's thoughts, beliefs, or judgments. They're not even your voice, but you've internalized them so deeply that they feel like truth. And Kali came. She met me in meditation, in movement, in rage. We danced together, literally, a death dance, stomping our feet, screaming, releasing the last shreds of attachment to old patterns of toxicity in relationship, to men who couldn't hold me, to the parts of myself that believed their lies. And I visualized chains around my ankles, heavy chains weighing me down, keeping me tethered to those old messages, those men, those demons, those introjections. And Kali and I, we cut them. We cut the cords. We stomped. We danced. We burned. We severed every chain. And then we were floating. And she's I'm picturing her like next to me at this point. And we're floating above the earth, above the weight. And all those old messages, all those men, all those interjections, they were nothing but ants below us. Small, powerless, gone. And Kali taught me something that I'm still learning. Oh my goodness, I'm stumbling over my words today. I apologize. But Kali taught me that being too much isn't a problem. Kali is too much. She's excessive, she's wild, she's uncontainable, and she doesn't apologize for it. So when I danced with Kali, I learned my too muchness is my power. My rage is my medicine, and my refusal to shrink is exactly what the world needs. And that's when I started to understand that my Kali placement, 4 degrees Sagittarius, 11th house, my destructive work, my burning down, my too muchness, it's not just for me. It's for the collective. It's for other women who've been told they're too much. It's for the earth, who's been told to be smaller, quieter, more accommodating while we poison her. And Kali in the 11th house says, your rage serves the movement. Your destruction clears space for collective healing, and your refusal to be tamed is part of the work. And that's what brought me to climate grief. Because once I understood that my personal Kali work was preparation for collective work, I started asking, where else is Kali moving? Where else is destruction happening that's being called too much when it's actually necessary? And the answer was obvious. The earth. Climate change. Kali as wildfire, as flood, as the planet's rage saying, I will not be small anymore. I will not accommodate your poison anymore. I'm burning it down so something new can grow. So my Kali work was personal at first. Cord cutting, liberation from toxic patterns, reclaiming my too muchness as sacred. But it was always meant to lead here, to this work, to standing with the earth in her rage, to helping others metabolize climate grief without numbing out, and to building communities, 11th house, that can hold destruction and the creation at the same time. So that's my Kali story. And that's what she taught me. And that's why I'm here talking to you about climate change as initiation. And Kali came for me, and now she's coming for all of us. And if that scares you, that's okay. Kali is scary. Sometimes she still scares me. That's why she's North Node, right? The goddesses on your South Node you tend to be more comfortable with. So if Kali is born from Durga, when the world's out of balance, when gentler approaches aren't working, what does that look like on a planetary scale? So Durga and Gaia are both great mother archetypes. They're not the same. Durga comes from Hindu tradition and Gaia from Greek, but they represent, to me, the same essential force. The divine feminine as creator, nurturer, sustainer of life. And Jung would call this the great mother archetype. And so Durga is the warrior mother. She fights to protect cosmic order. She embodies strength, sovereignty, fierce love. And Gaia is the earth herself. She's the living planet, the biosphere, the interconnected web of all life. She's matter. Matter, mother. And right now, both are under siege. For 200 years, we've been poisoning the earth, extracting her resources, burning her forests, filling her oceans with plastic, pumping carbon into her atmosphere, treating her like she's infinite, like she's ours to consume. And for a long time, Gaia absorbed it. She adapted, she compensated, she tried to maintain balance. But there comes a point where the mother can't hold it anymore, where gentle correction isn't enough, where adaptation becomes complicity with poison. And that's when Durga births Kali. That's when the Great Mother says, I tried the gentle way, now comes the fire. Climate change is Kali. It's Gaia's rage, it's the earth saying this system cannot continue. Look at what's happening. Wildfires have consumed unprecedented areas. The 2024 Canadian wildfires, for instance, burned over 45 million acres. Hurricane intensity has increased with more Category 4 and 5 storms. Floods are displacing millions. Droughts are making regions uninhabitable. And I worry about that here in Colorado. And species extinction rates are 100 to 1,000 times higher than the natural background rate. Scientists are calling this the 6th mass extinction. And this isn't random. This is not nature being nature. This is Kali. This is destruction that clears what must be cleared. And it's because of the demons, right? And in a way, we are the demons. But it's not all of us. It's the ego. It's the greed. It's those little demon parts inside of us, right? And so many of them come from fear. So many of them are fear-based, scarcity-based. And here's where the myth becomes crucial. If you remember the demons, every time Kali strikes one down, every drop of blood that hits the ground sprouts a new demon, right? And we see this not just in ourselves and our own inner demons, but we see this with climate solutions. We try to fix one problem, so we create electric cars. But then where does that lithium come from? Mining that destroys indigenous land and poisons water. So we try to fix another problem. So we build solar panels, right? But the production creates toxic waste. We ban plastic straws, but corporations keep producing millions of tons of plastic packaging anyways. And every drop of blood sprouts a new demon. Every Band-Aid solution that doesn't address the root creates new problems. And that's not to say that these initiatives don't matter. I think everything matters on a spiritual level. I think even just the energy of caring enough to try to fix something, caring enough to try to ban plastic straws matters. But the demons aren't the individual environmental issues. The demons are the systems. And the demons aren't us as individual people using a plastic straw on occasion. It's not you as an individual that is destroying the world. No one is saying that. But it's the systems that we live under that we are collectively still supporting or complying with. Those are the demons. Extractive capitalism, colonialism, patriarchy, the belief that Earth exists to serve human profit, the belief that we can take without giving back, without reciprocity, and the belief that growth is infinite on a finite planet. Those are the demons. Those are the true demons. And until we name them, until we address them at the root, we're just fighting symptoms while the disease spreads. And Kali had to consume the demon's blood. She had to take the poison into herself and trust she could transform it. And we're doing that at the physical level with those scientists developing bacteria to consume plastic, enzymes that break down toxins. That's the literal work of metabolizing poison. But, and here's where I come in, and my mission is, we also have to do this at the emotional and spiritual level. We have to metabolize the grief, the rage, the shame, the terror, the guilt. Because these emotions, when we numb them, when we refuse them, when we let them paralyze us, they become their own demons, and they hold us back from building what's next. Because here's what actually stops Kali in the myth. Love. In one version of the story, Kali is so consumed by her destructive dance that she threatens to destroy the entire world. And so Shiva, her consort, her beloved, lies down beneath her feet. And when she realizes that she's stepping on him, when she sees what her rage is doing to what she loves, she stops. She comes back to herself. Love is what transforms Kali's rage into power that serves life. And that's what we need now. Not to suppress the rage, not to bypass the grief, but to metabolize it, to feel it fully, to let it move through us so it becomes fuel for love. Love for each other, love for Earth. Love that builds the new world even as the old one burns. And we can't build from shame. We can't build from guilt. We can't build from numbness. We have to metabolize those emotions, process them, transform them, so we can build from connection, from care, from fierce love, fierce compassion that refuses to let the world die. The bacteria metabolize plastic, we metabolize emotion. Both are necessary, both are transformation, both are Kali's work and the work that comes after Kali, the work of love. That's the initiation, not just witnessing the destruction, but transforming our relationship to it, metabolizing the grief into connection, the rage into action, and the shame into fierce love that builds what must come next. Climate change is Kali's initiation. for all of us, for the whole species, and for the Earth herself. And the question is, can we be with it? Can we metabolize the emotions that keep us frozen and transform them into love that moves us forward? That's what we're being asked to do. That's the work of this moment, and that's why Kali is here. So if climate change is Kali's initiation, if we're being asked to metabolize grief and rage and shame into collective love and action, how do we actually do that? How do we stay present with what's happening without numbing out or burning out? First, let me introduce you to someone whose work has been foundational to this movement, Joanna Macy. Joanna Macy was an eco-philosopher, Buddhist scholar, and systems thinker who developed what she called the work that reconnects, a framework for processing climate grief and moving into what she called active hope. And she has a book called Active Hope if you're interested. But she taught this work from the 1970s until her passing, decades before most of us were even talking about climate change. And her legacy continues to guide so much of the earth healing work happening today. And she offered something crucial, a way to understand that there isn't just one way to respond to this crisis. There are multiple roles, multiple forms of action, and all of them are necessary. Joanna Macy talked about the Great Turning, the shift from an industrial growth society to a life-sustaining society. And she named 4 dimensions of this work, 4 roles we can play. And the first is holding actions. This is the frontline work. Civil disobedience, blockades, boycotts, legal battles, the people who literally put their bodies between the earth and the machines trying to destroy her. This is resistance work. This is slowing down the damage so that the other dimensions have time to take effect. And not everyone can do this. Not everyone is called to this, and that's okay. But we do need the people who are. And the second dimension is transforming the foundations, building structural alternatives. This is creating new systems, new economies, new ways of organizing society that are rooted in justice, care, and ecological balance. And so developing community gardens, building cooperative businesses. I want to go back. Developing community gardens, I don't just mean like doing the gardening. That's actually a different dimension. I mean developing new systems of agriculture, new systems of gardening. Also under this transforming the foundations dimension is creating mutual aid networks. That regenerative agricultural piece and building the infrastructure of the new world right inside the shell of our old world. And then the third dimension is called shifting consciousness, the inner work. This is the spiritual, psychological, cultural work of transforming our worldview, moving from separation to interconnection, from dominance to reciprocity, from extraction to sacred relationship with the earth. This deep work underpins all the other efforts, and this is where a lot of my work lives. This is priestess work. This is teaching people how to metabolize grief, how to reclaim their too muchness, how to see climate change as initiation rather than just disaster. This is shifting how we think, how we feel, how we relate to the earth and each other. And this connects directly to my North Node, which is at 14 degrees Scorpio in the 10th house. So that means essentially, and again, this is something I'm happy to send you in your own reading, but that essentially means that my soul's destiny is public transformational work, teaching depth, shadow, initiation. And my Kali placement supports that at Sagittarius in the 11th house, the house of collective movements and future vision. So my work is to stand publicly in this role of shifting consciousness and to do it for the collective, not just for individuals. And then the fourth realm was added later, but it's important, and it's called nurturing life, and it's a foundational dimension. And this is the age-old work of caring for each other and the earth. It includes raising children with life-affirming consciousness, growing the food, saving seeds, restoring ecosystems, beekeeping, tending to what's alive. This is the work that's always been done, that holds everything else together. And here's what Joanna Macy taught. You don't have to do all four. In fact, you can't do all four. But you do need to find your role based on your situation, your gifts, your limitations, your calling. Not everyone is called to chain themselves to a bulldozer. Not everyone is called to build cooperative businesses. Not everyone's called to teach spiritual practices. Not everyone's called to grow food and tend gardens. But everyone is called to something. And all of these roles are necessary. The great turning doesn't just happen with one dimension. It happens when all four are working together, when people are showing up in their specific role and trusting that others are showing up in theirs. So the question isn't, am I doing enough? The question is, what's my role? Where am I called to show up? And once you know your role, you can stop trying to do everything. You can stop feeling guilty that you're not doing someone else's work. You can metabolize the shame and the overwhelm and focus on what's actually yours to do. And this is really important. With everything happening in the world right now, there is so much collective feelings of helplessness. And our responses as humans to that are to freak out or shut down, right? Neither of which is particularly helpful. And what is helpful is to see what's happening, to say, well, that's crap, and that sucks, and I'm scared, and I don't know what to do, and what is actually mine? What actually can I do today? And sometimes that has nothing to do with whatever you saw on the news. Sometimes that is literally, well, today, what I actually can do, what I'm actually capable of doing is just being the best parent I can be. Or supporting my friend who's an activist, who is at the front lines protesting. They need me to call them. Or calling my friends who are minorities. They need me to sit with them. Or maybe it is chaining yourself to a picket fence. I don't know. Maybe it's simply going outside and starting to till the soil for your spring garden because you know that the sooner the flowers bloom, the sooner the bees can come back, the sooner Earth gets to come into her regenerative spring cycle, the sooner Persephone rises. I don't know. I don't know what that is for you. But the difference between spiritual bypassing and not spiritual bypassing is to see the thing and to let it call you to act. But the misconception is that we have to act in a certain way, that there's only one way to act. And that's why it's so important to know your role. And so I'll be reposting these roles on our Patreon as this episode's bonus content. And we'll also do our little practice at the end of this episode to start determining where you might be. But for me, my work primarily lives in the third dimension, shifting consciousness. And that includes teaching people how to be with Kali, how to metabolize climate grief, how to reclaim their power and their too muchness and their connection to the earth. That's priestess work, and that's what I'm here to do. And I'm building containers, which moves into the fourth dimension, nurturing life. Gatherings where we can hold this grief collectively. Circles where we can remember we're not alone. And spaces we can practice being with destruction and creation at the same time. And that's what I'm creating with the Heal the Earth mission, which I'll tell you more about in next week's episode. But for now, just know this work is collective. It's not on you alone. It's not on any of us alone. Find your role, show up there, and you have to trust that others are showing up in theirs. And when you need to, it's okay to titrate. It's okay to rest. And it's okay to come back to the deeper work when you're ready. Because we can't do this work if we're burned out. We can't build the new world if we're running on fumes. We have to metabolize the grief in doses we can handle. We have to come back to love, to connection, to each other, to the earth again and again. That's how we survive Kali's initiation. Not by doing everything, but by doing our part together. And speaking of finding your role and showing up, let's just come back to the astrology for a moment, because the timing of this conversation is not coincidental. Again, Neptune is entering Aries this Monday for the first time since the 1860s. Neptune is only in Aries once every 165 years. And for the last 14 years, Neptune's been in Pisces, dissolving boundaries, surrendering, dreaming, passive spirituality themes. This idea of let go and have faith energy. Meditation retreats, inner work, soft, flowing, receptive. And that's been necessary. We needed that dissolution. We needed to soften to the rigid structures, to reconnect with the mystical, to remember we're part of something larger, and we still need that. But now Neptune is entering Aries, and everything changes. Neptune in Aries is spirituality as action, as courage, as individual spiritual path that doesn't wait for permission or consensus. This is the spiritual warrior. This is the I will move, I will act, I will lead if you're called to. And this is the energy of people who don't just meditate on peace, they build it. We don't just pray for healing, we become healers. This is the energy of people who don't just hope someone saves the earth, they step up and do the work. This is Kali energy, this is active spirituality, and this is the mystic who gets up off the meditation cushion and does something. And it's also active hope. So as we're entering this transit right now, this week, as we're talking about climate change as initiation, about finding your role in the great turning, about metabolizing grief into action, Neptune in Aries says, the time for just thinking about it, just feeling it, just processing it, that time is passing. Now's the time to move, to act, to claim your role, whatever that might be, and step into it. Not recklessly, not without the inner work, but with the inner work as your foundation. Now you move. So let's close with a practice, and this practice will be the start of claiming your role in the great turning and using this Neptune and Aries energy to spur you into action. So close your eyes if it's safe to do so, and let's start by just taking a deep breath. Another one. Bring your awareness to your body. Just feel yourself here in this moment on this earth. And ask yourself, of Joanna Macy's 4 dimensions of the Great Turning, and that was holding actions, transforming foundations, shifting consciousness, and nurturing life, which one calls to me? Don't think too hard, just notice what arises. Maybe it's 1 dimension, maybe it's 2, maybe you already know, maybe you're discovering it right now. Holding actions, resistance, frontline work, putting your body between what you love and what threatens it. Just feel how these resonate as I talk through them. Transforming foundations, building new systems, creating alternatives, growing the infrastructure of the new world. Notice what's happening in your body. Shifting consciousness, inner work, teaching, healing, helping people see differently, feel differently, relate differently. And nurturing life, tending, caring, raising children, growing food, restoring what's damaged, tending animals, the ancient work of keeping life alive. Which one feels like yours? Which one in your body feels like yours? Now imagine Neptune and Aries, the spiritual warrior energy, filling your body. Feel the fire, the courage, the willingness to move, to act, to lead. And ask, what is one action I can take in my dimension? What is one step I can take in my role? Not everything, not solving the whole crisis, just one action, one step, one way of showing up. Maybe it's joining a protest. Maybe it's starting a garden. Maybe it's finally writing that thing you've been scared to write. Maybe it's having a hard conversation with your family about climate. Maybe it's finally simply committing to feeling the grief instead of numbing it. What's your one action? Let it come. Let Neptune and Aries show you. Let Kali show you. Let the earth show you. And when you have it, your role, your action, take a breath and say internally or out loud, I claim this. This is mine to do. I will show up here. One more breath. And then open your eyes. You know one of your roles now. You know one of your actions. You don't have to do everything. You just have to do this, your part, your piece. And trust that others are doing theirs. Everything we explore here lives in practice. There is the link in the episode description for our free website resources where you'll find our ritual grimoire embodiment library. And in both of those, there are earth-centered specific practices. There are even some Heal the Earth rituals in the ritual grimoire for those of you interested. And then if this work is serving you and you want to support the podcast, first, please leave a review, a rating. A lot of podcast platforms wait until you have a certain number of ratings before they even show your podcast to prospective viewers. So that is a number one thing you can do to support this if you haven't already. And if you'd like, I have a Patreon where you get monthly new moon rituals, the ability to list your business in our Coven shop, and more, including our weekly astrology transits. And that link is in the episode description. Your support helps me keep creating this content and building the Coven. Next week, I'll be sharing more about the Heal the Earth mission, what it is, how it came through, and how you can be a part of it. Subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. Trust the spiral. This podcast offers spiritual and psychological education and priestess wisdom. This is not therapy, counseling, or mental health treatment. If you need mental health support, please contact a licensed provider, and in a mental health emergency in the U.S., call 988.